Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to Art with Miss Gleason. Today we're going to be doing a crayon resist. Crayons with the wax that they're made of are wonderful to use with watercolor because the water glides over the wax and does not absorb into it. So you can leave patterns on your paper and then paint over it with watercolor and the patterns still show up. So we're going to be looking at a very famous piece of artwork. It's a Japanese painting and it was done in the late Edo period, which is a period of Japanese work, and it was done between 1829 and 1833. And technically it's not a painting, it is what is called a wood print. It is where they would carve the wood and then make prints of the carving. And it is done by an artist named Hokusai. And the title of the artwork is The Great Wave, and I know most of you have probably seen this painting at some point. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to do our own version of it using wax resist or crayon resist. Now, I'm just using basic dollar store watercolors, paintbrushes, and a white crayon. I'm also going to use a pencil because I always like to draw things out in pencil first, but I'm going to draw very lightly because I don't want my pencil lines to show up on my crayon resist. So, I'm going to draw from the left side of the page up, and I'm going to draw the curve of my wave. Draw a wave and draw it down, back down. So it's just the first part of the wave. Now, the bottom of the wave comes down underneath this curve here and curls back up to that side. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can add another shape if it's not quite high enough, like this. Now we're going to make all our lines coming from this spot right here, and they're going to follow the shape of the water. They don't all have to go straight from there. They can come here like this, and you can keep some simple. Remember, the more you do, the more patterns you're going to have to draw, or the more colors you'll use. And then maybe I do, so I'm just splitting up that space, the bottom part of the wave. And then I'm going to make some water splashes here. This is not necessary. You do not have to do that. Make some water splashes coming off the wave. Now that I've drawn it with pencil and I know where everything's going to go, I'm going to take my crayon. And I'm, again, just using a white crayon, so it's going to be very hard for you to see. And on the inside of that pencil line, I'm going to draw. I'm going to press down pretty hard so that there's a lot of wax being left on my paper. And I'm going to draw the outline of not every shape, but I definitely want this top one and maybe this one here. And in those spaces, I'm going to draw a pattern. And it does not have to be a very detailed pattern. It could be something very simple. I'm going to draw loops, and I know it's going to be hard for you to see, but I'm just going to draw kind of the scalloped edge, almost like fishtails or mermaid tails, like some of my students like to call it. It's that scalloped edge. And you can go through and add another scallop inside it. But any type of loopy pattern, wavy pattern, something that reminds you of the ocean. So I wouldn't do straight lines. And those would not look very oceany to me. And as we go up, our patterns will get smaller and smaller until it's just a couple of loops there at the top. I'm going to do another pattern here. I'm going to fill in some of these white spots here at the top of my wave. I'm going to do another pattern here, and I could do the same loopy pattern, or I could do something similar, but a little different. I think I might do a swirly pattern. So y'all know how much, if you're in my class, you know how much I like the swirly lines, the spirals. I'm going to make some of them overlap. And I'll do a big one over here. And if you're pressing down hard enough, you could probably see where your lines are with the white when you're drawing it. There we go. Now if you want to do another one, that's fine. I might add another little section. I like odd numbers, so I might add another little section right here and do one on this side of the wave as well. Maybe I'll do the spirals again. There. Now, I can add a white border to some of my lines. Again, you don't want to go crazy with this, but I'm just going to add a few white spots here and there. All right. Now the rest of it, I'm going to use a Sharpie as well, just to outline it. This is not necessary, but when I paint, I like to have my outline done. So I'm just going to very carefully trace the outline of my spaces. Again, this is not a necessary part. Your picture will look just fine without the outline. It's just something that I like to do. You don't have to worry about it being exactly perfect. Once you paint it, most of your pencil line will disappear. Instead of outlining the whole circle, I just do the bottom of the circles. Color these in white. And a few tiny little spots there and there. All right, now we get to paint. Now, what I'm going to do is called a wash, which means I'm going to wet my paper first. So I take my bigger brush, I dip it in the water, and I'm just going to wet the background of my paper. Now, you don't want to wet the whole paper at one time unless you're planning on doing a very large wash. I'm just wetting the background, the sky behind my wave. I'm going to make sure it's nice and wet. Then I'm going to pick up some blue. And again, you don't need a whole lot. A little bit is going to go a long way. I'm going to start putting some blue paint on there, just in my background. Now, my ocean's going to be blue kind of too, so I don't want to do too much of the same color blue. So I'm going to pick up some purple. Make sure you wash your brush between picking up colors like I needed to do. Pick up some purple here. And I can just blend it in with my blue. And wash your brush again. Pick up some more blue. And I would just keep going back and forth between the blue and purple. You could even add a little bit of green, but we're going to use more green in the ocean, so I wouldn't go crazy with the green. But we're only using cool colors, purples and blues and greens. But since my paper is already wet, do you see how much smoother and easier that paint is to come onto the paper? And I'm not having to scrub the paper to make it show up. I'm just kind of blending my colors together. And a little bit of purple to make it stand out. So now that I have my sky done, you can add, the more paint you add, the darker it's going to get. So I would start off lightly, and then if you need to add more color, you can always go back and add more color to it. Now that I have my sky sky done, we're going to start working on our waves. Like I said, we want our waves to be a little bit darker. I'm gonna do some blue, and maybe I do this one first since this is where I did some of my crayon. I want you to watch. Do you see how the blue paint does not stick to the crayon? That is a crayon resist or a wax resist, because you can do it without crayon. You can use other types of wax too. Do you see how that pattern shows up and it's still there? That's what I'm talking about. Now, I'm gonna do a different color on this one. Maybe I do a solid purple. And I did not wet, you notice I did not wet my waves the way I did the sky. I wanted the sky to be a little bit softer and to blend together better. My waves, I want to distinguish the colors between each section, so I don't want it to blend as well. And with a wash, your colors tend to be a little bit lighter. And if you don't wash your paper first, the colors are a little bit bolder and easier to see. Now, if they start to blend like this, that's okay. You just wet your brush and pull it in. And that's gonna happen, especially with watercolor paints. Now maybe I use some green. Now my green, I only have this basic color here. My green's a very bright green. That's not the color I want for this. It's a little too bright for my liking. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint it green, then I'm gonna add a little bit of blue to tone it down some. You'll notice that when I'm trying to do a small area, I use the edge of my brush, not the fat part, but I turn it sideways so it's a nice skinny line. And I use the edge of my brush. So now I've got the green. I wash my brush again. Always remember to wash your brush between colors. Pick up a little bit of blue, tone down that green some. You can also turn it down with a brown or a black, but black seems to be a very harsh color, and I don't want too dark of a color on my wave. See, that tones it down to more of an ocean blue, ocean green there. Maybe I'll do another blue section here. And I trace some of my areas with white, so you'll see when I brush over it, it leaves a white spot, like right here. That spot is left white, even though I'm brushing paint over it, just to give it a little bit extra definition. So if you're following along, I'm just using my cool colors, which are blue, purple, and green. I did a wash in the background, but I'm not doing a wash on these. I want the colors to be a little bit bolder on here. And if it starts to be too hard to blend, then you need to put more water on your brush. If it starts to come on too thick to where it's not spreading evenly on your paper, then you need more more water. I'm again using the side of my brush for these small spaces. Let's do the green again. It's okay, my brush still had, even though I washed my brush, there still was a little bit of purple on there. That's okay, the purple will tone down the green as well. So if your colors blend together a little bit, that's the beauty of watercolor. That's usually what happens. It's a little bit of a softer painting, and they tend to blend together a little bit more. And that's okay. I'm going to do a dark blue right here. So what I want this one to be is I want it to be a little bit darker. It's under the wave. So I'm going to put my blue on there. Keeping my brush wet. Put my blue on there, and then using, I don't know if y'all can see this. You'll see, I'm only gonna use the very tip, just this corner. I'm gonna touch the black paint, just that corner of my brush, not all of it. And I'm gonna put just a little tiny bit of black paint right up here under the top of the wave. And that's going to tone down and add a shadow. To my blue. Do you see how just a tiny touch of black makes a big difference? It makes it a lot darker. Like I said, black is a pretty strong color when it comes to watercolor paint. And you don't need to use a whole lot of it. It really tones down the blue instantly with just a tiny touch. So you definitely don't want to use a whole paintbrush full of black paint. And let's see, I'm going to do purple here, nice and dark. For under the wave. Then maybe I'll do a bright blue at the top. What do y'all think? Make this more of a solid. Solid bright blue. And you'll need to use a little bit more water when you're going over a whole bunch of crayon because it kind of holds onto the water some, so it's not as easy to spread. So you'll need more water on your brush when you're doing a whole bunch of crayon. So you see my crayon resist wave? Didn't it turn out pretty? Now I can go back, once I wash my brush, I can go back and even out some areas. Like I don't like that little spot right there, so I'm going to come back with a little bit more blue. I'm trying to even out my sky a little bit. And voila, we are done. Just fill in, make sure all my spaces are in. You don't want to leave any unnecessary white spaces. And that is how you do a crayon resist. Thank you very much.